Right? A very good afternoon, everyone. Today we'll start another very important unit of business ethics and CSR. That is Unit 13. That is that we will discuss on the roles and responsibilities of our CSR department. We'll discuss the what is CSR. We'll discuss the formation of CSR department and the CSR committee. We'll discuss the roles and responsibilities of the CSR committee. We'll discuss different important tax issues in CSR, and we'll discuss on make and buy decisions. And last, we'll discuss on the annual reporting on CSR. Now, before going deep into what are the roles and responsibilities of CSR, let us first understand that CSR goes beyond doing good, and it is a part of the business strategy. And in this unit, we'll discuss what are the elements that are present in section 135 of the Companies Act 2013 and how it is being applied, that is through CSR. We'll discuss on the fact that CSR benefits on aligning with the business strategy, that is for example, we are enhancing the brand image, we are engaging with the stakeholders, we are contributing to a social cause. So there are different important mandatory CSR provisions in India. The first one is overview of section 135 of the Companies Act 2013. The criteria for the companies to qualify under section 135, that is, we have to take into consideration the net worth of the company, the turnover of the company, and the net profit. We'll also discuss on the required CSR expenditure, wherein 2% of the average net profit is to be used for the CSR activities over the last 3 years. Coming to the roles and responsibilities of the CSR committee, there is the composition of CSR committee, which is including the number of directors required. The role of committee in formulating the role of committee plays a very important part in formulating the CSR policy, and we'll also discuss on the different important responsibilities in monitoring and ensuring that CSR compliance is done. So starting with functioning of the CSR department, the CSR department aligns with the business practices. We discuss on the strategic alignment, wherein we discuss how the CSR department can align the initiatives with the company's core values and business model. Then we discuss on the stakeholder engagement, where there is collecting feedback from the customers, employees, and community members to shape the CSR initiatives. We discuss on the program implementation, wherein there is designing and executing projects that address the social, environmental, and economic issues. And we again discuss on how these how the CSR activities are being monitored and evaluated, wherein we go for assessing the impact of CSR initiatives and making the adjustments as necessary. Now, talking about the key functionaries in the CSR department, we have the CSR head or the manager, who is responsible for the overall strategy and program execution. We have the CSR committee members who provide governance and oversight into the CSR activities. We have the project manager who manage individual CSR projects. We have the community relations officer who engage in communities and collect feedback, the financial officers who ensure compliance with financial provisions of the Companies Act. For the successful implementation of the CSR strategies, case studies or examples of the companies, like say we have the Tata Steel, Nalco, is being taken into consideration with successful CSR programs that is being aligned with the business strategy. We also highlight the key initiatives and the outcomes for the successful implementation of CSR strategies. So for successful implementation of CSR strategies, we go on for understanding the case studies. For example, we go on for understanding the case studies of Tata Steel and Nalco, where there is a successful implementation of CSR. And we also highlight that what are the initiatives taken and what is the result thereon. There are different important challenges in CSR implementation. It's not easy. The common obstacles being there is a lack of alignment with the business goals and there is insufficient stakeholder engagement, because to motivate the people to contribute for a cause of the society is a difficult aspect altogether. When we are talking about CSR challenges in CSR implementation, there is again different important strategies to overcome. We need to understand that we need to incorporate different important strategies to overcome these challenges. Coming to the formation of the CSR department and the CSR committee, according to the section 135, the section 135 applies to the companies that meet the following criteria, wherein the net worth of a company is 500 crore or more, the turnover of the company is 1000 crore or more, wherein the net profit of the company is 5 crore or more during the immediate preceding financial year, then these companies are required to form a CSR committee of the board. When we are coming to understand the CSR committee composition, we take into consideration the listed companies, wherein we have, for listed companies there is a minimum of 3 directors and at least 1 director should be an independent director. For unlisted company, it is not possible to have, it is not compulsory to have an independent director. And for foreign companies, the committee, the CSR committee should have at least 2 persons, and 1 person should be from the resident of India authorized to accept notices and document, and the other person should be nominated by the foreign company. Coming to who is an independent director, according to section 149(6) of the Companies Act, it defines that an independent director must be a non-executive director. He should have requisite qualification and experience. He should not have any pecuniary relationship with the company. Coming to the discussion on the roles and responsibilities of the CSR committee, the CSR committee formulates and recommends a CSR policy to the board. Then it recommends the amount of expenditure to be incurred on the CSR activities. Then it establishes a transparency monitoring mechanism for the implementation of CSR projects. It reviews the performance of the company in CSR areas. Then we need to submit an annual report on the CSR activities to the board, and then we go for monitoring and updating the CSR policy from time to time. So when we are talking about the roles and the responsibility of CSR committee, it is very important, wherein the policy is to be formulated and to be recommended, and after the recommendation, the amount of expenditure to be incurred is being communicated. Then a transparent monitoring mechanism for the implementation of CSR projects is being established. Then we go for reviewing the performance of the company in CSR areas, and then an annual report on CSR activities to the board is being submitted, and then monitoring and updating the CSR policy from time to time is to be done. So when we are talking about CSR policy and Schedule 7 of the Act, the CSR policy should align with the activities as specified in the Schedule 7 of the Companies Act. We have already discussed the different important activities that include eradicating hunger and poverty, promoting education, gender equality, environmental sustainability, protection of national heritage, so on and so forth. There are when we discuss about the CSR reporting and disclosure, the CSR board report should disclose the composition of the CSR committee, the details of the CSR policy, the annual CSR activities and its expenditure. For monitoring and implementation mechanism, we need to establish a robust monitoring system or robust monitoring mechanism. We need to set up processes for the evaluation and tracking of CSR initiatives, and a transparent reporting and feedback mechanism is being set so that feedback can be taken. There are different important challenges in front of it. The challenges are in forming and managing a CSR committee. When we are talking about CSR committee, for example, we have the compliance, we have the stakeholder alignment. The best practices for effective governance of CSR is, first and very important thing is that it should have a clear-cut role definition. There should be regular performance reviews of the CSR activities, and the CSR activities should be aligned with with the business strategy. Then only we can see that the governance is being done in an effective manner. Now, coming to the roles and responsibilities of the board, we need to understand that the board of directors role as defined under section 210 of the Companies Act, as it is considered as a collective body. It overseeing the company's management to protect the long-term stakeholder interest. When we talk about the role of board of directors in CSR, there is disclosure of CSR committee composition, wherein the board must disclose the composition of the CSR committee in its report. For the approval of the CSR policy, the board must approve the CSR policy, which is based on the recommendations of the CSR committee. The policy must be disclosed in the board report and on the company's website. It is very, very important. While coming to the implementation and the monitoring part, we should ensure that the CSR activities are undertaken as per the CSR policy. We can't go beyond it, we can't go out of it, and we need to ensure that the CSR activities fall within the scope of Schedule 7, which is very, very important. Now, the activities that are being included in the Schedule 7 are those companies that are include the CSR activities, which include eradicating hunger and poverty, promoting education, promoting gender equality and empowering women, ensuring environmental sustainability, so on and so forth. So when we are talking about this activities in the Schedule 7, which we can take for the CSR activities, are eradicating extreme hunger and poverty. That is, initiatives to provide food, shelter, and basic necessities to the unprivileged communities. Second important activity is promotion of education, establishing educational institutions, providing scholarships to the students, and supporting in the learning activities of the children. Third important element under Schedule 7 is gender equality and empowerment of women. That is, there should be support to women-led initiatives and vocational training for women. Environmental sustainability, where the projects focused on clean energy, waste management, and conservation. There are different important additional activities also under Schedule 7, which is national protection of national heritage, art and culture, that is supporting the museums, libraries and art projects. Second one is support for armed forces, veterans and dependents, where welfare initiatives for veterans, war widows and their families are being taken into consideration. When we are talking about this, we also take into consideration the activity which is called as promotion of sports, that is training and facilities for rural and national sports, including Paralympics and Olympics is to be provided. Now, next is the contribution to the government funds. These CSR activities also support the funds set up by the central or the state government for the socio-economic development, for the welfare of the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, minorities, and the women. The activity again also includes the support to the incubators, that is contributing to the incubators funded by the central or the state government. Next is support for the public funded universities, wherein the contributions to universities and institutions of national importance is also there. Now, when we are coming for the activities under Schedule 7 for CSR activities, we also take into consideration the rural development and the slum area development. It takes into consideration rural development projects, wherein initiatives are aimed at rural infrastructure, development of facilities, agricultural support, etc. We also take into consideration the slum area development. It is the projects are being framed for improving the living conditions in the slum areas, providing sanitation and basic amenities. Now, there are recent amendments to Schedule 7 that is being added in May 2020. It all that CSR activities also include the area of disaster management, wherein the activities that is relating to disaster management like the relief, rehabilitation and reconstruction are also included. The different important CSR projects that are being included are project Nanhi Kali, that supports the education, Nanhi Kali, that supports the education for the young girls. Next is the Mahindra Pride Schools that offers vocational training. Next is we have the Lifeline Express, wherein we have the it provides healthcare facilities to the remote areas. Now the impact is empowered. It empowered thousands of young women and improved the health outcomes in the remote areas with these facilities. Next is we have the ITC group. We have the now this key CSR activities are being taken by Mahindra and Mahindra, are being provided by Mahindra and Mahindra. Next is we have the ITC group. In ITC group, it provides the sustainable livelihood and environmental programs. It created sustainable livelihood opportunities for the 6 million people. There is a e-Shopal initiative that is connected to the rural farmers to market using internet, benefiting over 4 million farmers across the 40,000 villages. Now, ITC Group also provides social and farm forestry program. It helps convert the wastelands into productive pulpwood estates. Now, there are different important empowerment program for the women that supports 40,000 rural women with micro enterprises and livelihood enhancement initiatives. Next is we have the PNG. PNG has the Siksha program that is aimed at promoting education among the rural children, and it contributes a fixed sum from the sale of PNG products to the education fund. Now, what is the impact? Now, it has invested over 24 crores in Siksha to date, benefiting thousands of rural children. Next important example of CSR activities is being done by Dabur India. The key areas in it are eradicating the hunger, poverty, and malnutrition, wherein the food, nutrition, and shelter programs for the marginalized communities are being provided. Next is we have the healthcare initiatives, that is the health checkups are being done, parental and postnatal care are being given, awareness programs are being conducted. It also provides for environmental sustainability, that is the different important drives that are being conducted, like say we have the tea plantation drive, biodiversity projects, and agroforestry. Next is the vocational training for livelihood enhancement. The programs that include beauty training, food processing, and vermicomposting. So the impact is there is enhanced health and education standards in the rural communities. Now we have our Tata Group. There is a comprehensive CSR approach. It focuses on the different important aspects, and very successfully it is doing its CSR activities. It focuses on education, healthcare, women empowerment, and infrastructure development. It provides scholarship, it conducts vaccination drives, and it raises awareness on critical health issues. There are different important economic empowerment programs. It provides agriculture programs, sports scholarships, and social welfare initiatives. The CSR activities as provided by Ultratech it works across 407 villages to promote sustainability and self-reliance. It also focuses on healthcare, education, and environmental sustainability. There are different important key projects that are being done, that are being provided, that are being done. One is the medical camps, then we have the water conservation, and then natural farming programs. School enrollment drives are also being done, and vaccination programs are also conducted. Next, we have the CSR program by the Hindustan Unilever Limited, where it goes for concentrating on the environmental and social policies. It develops a robust environmental management system, and it is committed to reducing waste, conserve energy, and promoting reuse and recycling. Health and education programs are also being provided by HUL, wherein it focuses on food product safety, community welfare, and maintaining high environmental standards. So when we go for comparative analysis of CSR initiatives, we see that there are different important areas wherein these CSR activities are being taken into consideration. One is in education and skill development, that is being done by Mahindra and Mahindra, PNG, and Tata Group. Healthcare and hygiene is being done by Dabur India and Ultratech. Environmental sustainability is being done by ITC Group and HUL. Rural development and livelihood enhancement is being done by the ITC Group and the Ultratech Cement. Now, when we talk about the best practices in CSR governance, we understand that there should be alignment of CSR activities with the business objectives. There should be active board involvement and oversight. There should be regular impact assessment and transparency reporting, such that we see that our activities are done in an effective manner. There should be strong stakeholder engagement and community partnership. Now, coming to the challenges and solutions, what will be the challenges? It should ensure that it ensures compliance with the legal requirement. Transparency is being maintained and ethical standards are maintained. There is balance between CSR spending and profitability. So these are some of the challenges that the CSR policy is being facing, or CSR activity is being facing. Now, how can we come out of a solution out of it? We need to, first and very important thing is, we need to establish clear policies and governance structure. There should be regular training and capacity building for the people working in the organization. There should be continuous monitoring and evaluating the CSR impact. Now, there are different important key issues in CSR. When we are talking about the key points on tax treatment of CSR expenditure, which is being laid down in the Income Tax Act of 1961, it suggests that Section 37 of the Income Tax Act, which section? Now, Section 37 of the Income Tax Act acts as a residuary provision for deductions of business expenses, wherein it allows deduction in the following criteria. Now, what are the different important different important areas wherein we can go for these deductions? One is which is not covered under Section 30 to 36 of the IT Act. The expenditure which we do here is of revenue nature. The expenditure is incurred wholly and exclusively for the business purposes. We can't use that fund, or we cannot use that amount, the CSR amount or CSR fund, for any other business activities. And it is not personal in nature. So the fund that we are assimilating for the CSR activities, or we are getting for the CSR activities, it should not be personal in nature. So when we are talking about the Income Tax Act, when we are talking about the Section 37 of the Income Tax Act, an expense not necessarily direct relationship with the business operations should ensure the smooth conduct of the business indirectly. So these has traditionally allowed for deductions of certain voluntary social expenditures. What are these voluntary social expenditures? Such as installing traffic lights near the business site, installing traffic lights near the business site. Now the impact. Now let us discuss about the impact of Section 135 of the Companies Act. When we are talking about the impact of Section 135, it mandates that the company that is meeting the specific financial thresholds, that is to spend at least 2% of their average net profit on CSR activities, and that is specified under Schedule 7 of the Companies Act. Now, when we are talking about there is according to explanation 2 of Section 37, it was introduced via Finance Act 2014, and it specifies that expenditure on CSR activities under Section 135, expenditure on CSR activities under Section 135 cannot be claimed as a deduction under Section 37, as it is not considered incurred for business purposes. Now, when we are coming for the CSR rules and their clarification, according to Rule 4.1 of the Companies Rules 2014 on corporate social responsibility, it states that that it states that the CSR expenditure should not, the CSR expenditure should not include should not include expenditures that is incurred in the normal course of business. If CSR expenditure falls with the company's objective under the MOU, under the memorandum of association, then it can be justified as the commercial expedient under section 37. It may still qualify for deduction even if it does not fall within the company's normal course of business as per rule 4.1. There are different important contradiction and interpretations. The text suggests that explanation 2 is merely clarificatory, and it introduces an outright inclusion of all the funds of the CSR expenditure under section 135 from being deductible under section 37. While CSR activities are mandated by law, the interpretation and eligibility of deduction can differ based on the nature of activity and its connection of the company's business operations. Now, there are different important alternative deductions for CSR activities. Now, CSR expenditure can also be claimed under the following sections of the IT Act. Section 30 to Section 36 for specific business expenses. Section 80G for donations made to certain institutions or funds. Section 35 CCA and Section 35 CCB are used for expenditures on rural development or conserving the natural resources. Section 35 for expenditures on scientific research, which offer 125% or 175% of the tax benefit. So we get tax benefit also. Now, second important element is the strategic CSR planning for the tax benefit. So, as there is differential tax treatment under various sections, companies might prefer to engage the CSR activities that provide the maximum tax benefit, that is limiting the scope of CSR to such tax beneficial activities. For example, the companies might prefer to contributing to Prime Minister's Relief Fund, which allows 100% deduction, or through NGOs that is registered under the section 80G that allows 50% deduction. So, to conclude, we can say that while section 135 of the Companies Act mandates CSR expenditure for certain companies, its deduction under the IT Act has become complex, especially with the introduction of explanation 2 under section 37. The companies looking to optimize their CSR strategies for tax benefits need to navigate through various sections of the IT Act to identify the best fit provisions, aligning their social initiatives with the activities that offer higher deductions. Next, we come to the make and buy decisions. When we are talking about make and buy decisions, it is basically choosing between producing or executing an item, or actively internally, which is called as make, or sourcing it from an external entity, which is called as buy. So, in the context of CSR, make means the company conducts CSR activities internally, leveraging its own resources and personnel. And buy means the company outsources the CSR activities to engage the organizations or agencies such as non-profit organizations or specialized CSR firms. So when the CSR activities are done from inside the organization, it is called as make. And when the CSR activities are outsourced to other important agencies or firms, then it is called as buy. Now, what is the strategic implication? Now, the decision between the internalization and outsourcing in CSR activities hinges on factors. What are the factors? One is the internal resources and capabilities. If the company has the necessary expertise, knowledge, and resources, it may choose to internalize its CSR activities. Second is the cost efficiency. So the companies might choose to internalize the CSR activities to reduce the transaction and agency cost, especially if they can perform the activities more efficiently than the market. Next is the organizational knowledge and control. The activities close to a company's core mission are better managed in-house due to better alignment with the internal goals, easier monitoring, and reduced risk of agency problems. Now, coming to internalization and outsourcing. The internalization we discussed is make, that is preferred when the company's CSR activities are closely linked to the company's main mission and objectives. It helps in reducing the agency problems and leveraging internal monitoring system. It also ensures that CSR activities must align more closely with the company's brand values and strategy. When we talk about outsourcing, that is buy, it is basically suitable when CSR activities require specialized resources or capabilities that the company lacks. There is outsourcing may be more effective for activities that are less central to the company's core mission, as external agency may have better expertise or efficiency in these areas. It may be necessary due to a lack of organizational knowledge or inadequate internal control system. Then we go for outsourcing. There are different important factors that influence this make or buy decision. One is the resource availability. That is the availability of the financial resources, means financial, human, or technical resources within the organization. When we take into consideration the transaction cost, that is the cost that are associated with contracting, monitoring, and managing external agencies. Next, we have the agency cost that is arising from ensuring that external entities' actions are in line up with the company's CSR objectives. Next is the firm's capability, the company's ability to execute CSR activities effectively with its existing capabilities. Second element is the optimal allocation of resources. The decision on internalizing or outsourcing the CSR activities should aim for an optimum allocation of resources, which is very, very important, which ensures that internalization occurs when the company has a comparative advantage with the external providers. And outsourcing happens when the external providers can achieve better efficiency and effectiveness than the internal providers. There are different important collaborative governance models, that is depending on the nature of the CSR activities and its alignment with the company's core mission. The firms may adopt different governance models, that is ranging from partial collaboration, that is partnership with external agencies, to total outsourcing, which is full delegation of CSR activities to an external party. Now we discuss on the annual reporting on CSR. When we talk about the annual reporting on CSR, this is again being done by the CSR committee. So the CSR committee plays a crucial role in ensuring that the company is meeting its statutory obligation to relate the CSR under the Companies Act 2013. The CSR committee, along with the board of directors, the CSR committee, along with the board of directors, ensures that the company CSR activities are planned, executed, monitored, and reported transparently and effectively. So when we talk about this CSR committee, there are different important role that is being played by the CSR committee. The first one is through CSR committee we can go for approval and disclosure of CSR policy. The board of directors, after taking into account the recommendations of the CSR committee, they must approve the CSR policy of the company. Again, I am telling, if the board of directors, after taking into account the recommendations of the CSR committee, they must approve the CSR policy of the company. The approved CSR policy and the contents of the CSR policy must be disclosed on the board's report. The board must also ensure that the details of the CSR policy are published on the company's website as per the prescribed manner. If the company fails to spend the prescribed CSR fund, the board must specify the reasons for such failure in its report. Now coming to the SEBI business responsibility reporting, SEBI business responsibility reporting, which is called as the BRR. The Securities and Exchange Board of SEBI is Securities and the Exchange Board of India. through its through its circular issued on August 13, 2012, it mandates that the top 100 listed companies to report their ESG initiative. When I talk about ESG, I talk about environmental, social, and we talk about environmental, social, and we talk about environmental, social, and governance initiative. The ESG initiatives must be reported as a business responsibility report, wherein it includes as a part of the annual report. It includes as a part of the annual report. The business responsibility reporting is aligned with the national voluntary guidelines on social, environmental and economic responsibilities of the business, that is being published by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs in the year 20 in the when we are talking about this we are talking about it is being aligned with the national voluntary guidelines on ESG of business, that is being published by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs in the year 2011 July. So SEBI has provided a template for filing the business responsibility reporting, and the provisions have been made in the listing agreement to incorporate the submission of the business responsibility reporting by relevant companies. So the companies are now required to report their performance. The companies are now required to report their performance on the 9 NBG principles through the business responsibility reporting. So other listed companies are encouraged by SEBI to voluntarily disclose the information on their ESG performance using the business responsibility reporting format. So there is a format for the annual report of CSR activities that is being included in the CSR's report. It must include the company's CSR policy, outline of the company's CSR policy, that is an overview of the projects or the programs that are being proposed to be undertaken, a reference of the web link wherein such activities that is being related to the CSR and the details of the projects and programs can be accessed. Next is the composition of the CSR committee. There should be a clear mention of the members of the CSR committee. It includes the chairperson and the other directors who might be also included in the project. Next is the average net profit of the company for the last 3 financial years is to be calculated, which is based on the net profit of the last 3 net profit. I again repeat, it is the net profit of the last 3 financial years. When we are talking about what should be the prescribed CSR expenditure, we are talking on the fact that a company's profit, the 2% of the average net profit is calculated, which represents the amount the company is required to spend on the CSR activities during the financial year. When we are talking about the details of the CSR amount spent during the financial year, we take into consideration the total amount to be spent for the financial year, the amount unspent, if any, because it has to be again shown, justified, and then the detailed breakdown of the manner in which the amount was spent, specifying the projects, activities, and the implementing agencies. Now, there are if certain fund is remaining unspent, the CSR fund or CSR amount is remaining unspent, then the company then what will happen? It must provide a detailed explanation for not spending, why it is not being spent it should be spent in, it should be provided in the board's report. While coming to the understanding the responsibility statement of the CSR activities of the CSR committee, it is suggesting that the CSR committee should provide a responsibility statement. What is this responsibility statement? It should ensure that the implementation and monitoring of the CSR implementing and the implementation and the monitoring of the CSR policy is in compliance with the CSR objectives and policy of the company. So the statement is being signed by the CEO, the managing director, or a director of the company. CEO, managing director, or the director of the company. The statement should also be signed by the chairman of the CSR committee. The person who is specified under the clause D of the subsection 1 of section 380 of the Companies Act, wherever it is. So when we are talking about the responsibility statement of the CSR committee, it suggests that the committee should provide a responsibility statement ensuring that there is implementation and monitoring of the CSR policy which is in compliance with the CSR objectives and policy of the company. Now, it is also suggesting that the statement should be signed by CEO, the managing director, or a director of the company. The chairman, it should be signed by the chairman of the CSR committee, and the person who is specified under this clause of the subsection of section 380 of the Companies Act, wherever it is applicable. Now, what is the importance of the CSR committee in reporting? Now, it is very important that the CSR committee, which is responsible to ensure that all the CSR activities are strategically aligned with company goals and are executed in a manner that creates a positive impact. So when we talk about this, we also ensure that the committee must ensure that the reporting format prescribed by the Companies Act 2013 is to be followed to maintain transparency and compliance. There should be proper and timely reporting by the CSR committee. If timeliness is not being maintained, it might create problem, and it builds the company's reputation and trust among the stakeholders. It also ensures that the company's commitment for its ESG is evident. So by adhering these guidelines, the companies can ensure that their CSR activities are basically compliant with legal requirements, and they contribute effectively to the sustainable development goals of the organization and society at large. When I talk about SDG, it is Sustainable Development Goal, or when I talk about Sustainable Development Goal, it is SDG. SDG that there is that it suggests that the CSR contributes effectively for the or towards the sustainable development goals of the organization and the society at large. So whenever we are discussing about the roles and responsibilities of CSR, it is very, very important to understand that what are the activities under the section 7 wherein the CSR activities is to be done, because unless and until we do certain activity, we can't provide a report. So to sum up, we can say that this particular chapter, it is dealing with the formation of the CSR department and CSR committee, wherein we understand what is CSR and business strategy, what are the different important mandatory provisions of CSR in India, and what are the roles and responsibilities of the CSR committee, how the functioning of the CSR department is being done, so that we can find out in which area what fund will be utilized. There are different important key functionaries, different important individuals who are working with the CSR department. The first one is the CSR head or the manager. Second is we have the CSR committee members. Third one is the project manager. Fourth one is the community relations officer, and the fifth one is the financial officers. So for the successful implementation of CSR strategy, there are different important companies who have put forward who has gone for the implementation of CSR. The first one is the Tata Steel and the Nalco, wherein they have incorporated their CSR programs very successfully, which is aligning with the business strategy, and they have highlighted the key initiatives and outcomes. When we are talking about the formation of the CSR committee and CSR department, we take into consideration the application of the section 135. We also discussed that the CSR committee comprises of minimum of the three directors. there wherein one director must be an independent director, and this is for the listed company. For the unlisted company, it is not compulsory to have an independent director. And for the foreign companies, the CSR committee should have at least two persons. One person must be a resident of India who is authorized to accept the notices and documents, who is authorized to accept the notices and the discount, and and the other person should be nominated by the foreign company. When we are talking about independent director, the independent director is very very important. And when we talk about the about the responsibilities or about the characteristics of the independent director, we can say that he must be he must be a non-executive director, and he should have requisite, he should have requisite qualification and experience, and he should not have any pecuniary relationship with the company. So again, we discussed on the roles and responsibilities of the board. We discussed on introduction of CSR and the board's role, wherein we discussed the board of directors role. We also discussed the role of board of directors, which comprises of disclosure of CSR committee composition, approval of the CSR policy, implementation and monitoring. Okay, there are different. Now when we are talking about the CSR activities, we can't go beyond the Schedule 7 of the Companies Act. Now when we are talking about Schedule 7 of the Companies Act, there are different important elements which should be included under CSR activities. One is eradicating extreme hunger and poverty. Second is promotion of education. Third is gender equality and empowerment of women. Fourth is environmental sustainability. Then we have protection of national heritage, art and culture. Next we have support for armed forces, veterans and dependents. Then we have promotion of sports. Then we have contribution to government funds. Then we have contribution to government funds. And then we have support for incubators. Then we have support for public funded universities. And then we have the rural development projects, slum area development, disaster management, which was added in disaster management, which was added in 2020. And these are some of the examples that we have taken into consideration who are responsible, who have responsible CSR activities. One is the Mahindra and Mahindra. Second is we talked about ITC Group. Third is we talked about Procter and Gamble. Fifth, next is we talked about Dabur. We talked about Tata Group. Now we have already discussed that Tata Group does these CSR activities in a very comprehensive manner, where the Tata Group focuses on education, healthcare, women empowerment, and infrastructure development. It also provides scholarship to conduct different vacation drives and raises awareness on the critical health issues. Now there are different important economic empowerment, and there are different important economic empowerment programs. Like say we have the agriculture programs, like say we have the sports scholarship, and we have the social welfare initiatives. We also spoke on Ultratech Cement, which is providing the social responsibility initiatives. We also talked about Hindustan Unilever Limited, that is HUL. We also spoke about that how this HUL is helping the community in providing health and education programs. So when we are talking about different important initiatives of CSR, we speak about education and skill development. We speak about healthcare and hygiene. We speak about environmental sustainability. We speak about rural development and livelihood enhancement. So there are different, so on and so forth. So there are different important strategy practices also. We discussed on corporate governance. We discussed the different important challenges and solutions. Next, we came to understand the tax issues in CSR. So we found out certain important points that has to be taken into consideration when we are discussing on the tax issues in CSR. The first one is section 37 of the Income Tax Act. So it identifies the impact of section 135 of Companies Act in 2013. It also identifies different important CSR rules and their clarification. It also identifies the contradictions and interpretations. Now there are different important. We also discussed in this task issue. We also discussed the different important alternative deduction for CSR activities. We discussed strategic CSR planning for tax benefits, and we also found that if the amount of CSR is remaining unspent, then it can be contributed to the Prime Minister's Relief Fund, which is allowing 100% deduction, or we can also put it through NGOs under the section 80G, which will allow a 50% deduction. We also discussed about make or buy decisions. We found that if the CSR activities are being incorporated, taking into consideration the company's vision or company's own achievement of target, then it is called as the make. And when the companies outsources CSR activities, then it is called as the buy. Now there are different important strategic implications. Through this, we can go for providing expertise, knowledge, and resources that may choose to internalize these CSR activities. The cost the companies might choose to internalize the CSR activities to reduce transaction cost. Then we have the organizational knowledge control, where the activities that are close to a company's core mission are better managed in house due to their better alignment with an entire goals. That is easier to monitor, and it also helps in reducing the risk of agency problems. So when we go for make or buy decision, we go for either internalization or we go for either outsourcing. There are different important factors also we discussed for make and buy. We also discussed about how this optimal allocation of resources can be done. We also discussed about collaborative governance modeling. Now, while discussing about annual reporting, which is very, very important, we discussed on the approval and disclosure of the CSR policy. We discussed about SEBI's reporting. SEBI is Securities and Exchange Board of India. We also, in this CSR reporting, discussed on the format for the annual report for the CSR activities that is to be included in the board report. So, next, we also discussed on the importance of CSR committee in reporting. We understood that the CSR committee is responsible for ensuring all the CSR activities are being done strategically, and it is aligning with the company's goals, and it is executed in a manner that creates a positive impact. So this is all about today's class. So in today's class, which is very, very important, we discussed on CSR. We discussed on CSR reporting. We discussed on formation of CSR department and CSR committee. We discussed on roles and responsibility of the board. We discussed on tax issues in CSR. We discussed on make and buy decisions, and we also discussed how the annual reporting of CSR is being conducted. Thank you very much for hearing, and hope you have understood and you can implement it well. Thank you so much.